You see a little extra intro?
Good evening. Welcome back to PoliTalks, friends. Hi, Summer. I missed
Hi,
you last week.
Frank.
I
I
didn't really
missed you guys
know
too.
you were cooping us.
I
When
was
you was
keeping an eye in the chat just to see how the conversation was going. It was super interesting. Although I don't feel like I get the full-fledged whole show experience that I'm accustomed to. It definitely was interesting being in the chat and just like being part of that conversation and being
yeah,
able to talk to different people and like people's stuff, so that was cool.
that's good. That's good. That's good. So, welcome back. And so, what are we doing this week, Summer? Well, before we jump into the show, I know that on Thursday you're supposed to be doing something. There's some kind of
Yeah.
important thing we need to discuss, and people need to practice.
So yeah, so before we get into the show, I would just like to invite all of PoliTalks listeners and anybody from the community to come out to VI Engage, which is a town hall that's being hosted by Virgin Islands Good Food Coalition. Um, oh my gosh, my brain froze. Chant, right? And C, three nonprofits with the St. Croix Foundation for Community Development to have a conversation about what's been going on with Lime Tree and the refinery. We have this extended invitations to government officials. People from the EPA will be there, hopefully the Department of Health. We've invited all our senators. And this is just an informational conversation, right? Just to get more clarity. We know that there have been a series of incidences revolving, potentially the refinery, and we need clarity. We know people in Frederickstead are suffering from the smell of that noxious gas. We know schools have been closed. I really just want the community to begin to feel empowered and get engaged around the conversation on what's happening. And if there's points of clarification that hosting this conversation can be a part of, we're having a series of 3 conversations. So this is just the first one. It's completely virtual. It is happening on Thursday. And if you go to my Facebook page, I'll make sure I send a link and put it in the chat. We're also, if people want to make comments on their personal experience, we have an anonymous comment survey, right? So you can share your experience, but don't feel like you've been put on the spot. And so I'll also put that in tonight's chat. We hope as many people come out as possible. This is our community, and part of what we do on PoliTalks, part of what I do in my personal life, right, is taking back power from places where we have abdicated it, feeling like we are actually not in control. Community, we actually have more control than we know, and it starts with a conversation. It starts with us showing up. So that's what we'll be doing. I'll put more information in the chat. And hopefully after the town hall, we can get some of those guests to come on PoliTalks now that the community has more conversations, and we could also talk about what happened there.
Good. I look forward to that. I think it's a conversation that definitely needs to be had, especially since there's been days of speculation about the odors and whatever else is going on. Is Lime Tree going to be coming to the table for this conversation?
Lime Tree has been invited.
Okay.
The office of the governor has been invited. The legislature, every legislator, every elected senator has been invited. The Department of Health, VITEMA, has been invited. And just like to be clear, because I know a lot of times our elected officials, when they hear that people are having a town hall and the town hall is actually hosted by the people, it feels like it's this gotcha moment where people can try to no, this is actually questions were provided beforehand. So exactly, you have the gist of the direction in which we want clarity. An invitation has been cordially extended, and we hope they show up.
I hope they show up too. I think the only way that we move forward progressively is to have a fully open conversation, and that has to happen between the community and everybody that's involved.
Well, the community is who elected you, and so whether or not, so here's my hard line, right? whether or not it is the refinery or not the refinery, as the elected officials who, some of you who participated in the vote for this, and those of you who will have to participate in votes moving forward, you owe your constituents the respect enough to show up, right? I don't think that your constituents expect you to have all the answers in the moment, but if you don't have the common decency to show your face when the community is calling, and if you're trying to tell me and my organization ain't part of the community and the constituents that we represent, you know what I mean? It's just a slippery slope when you choose not to engage because because even just to hear, to be present with them as they hear, right? And so we'll see.
Good.
We'll see. And I
hope people
are watching.
Thursday virtual town hall. The link will be in the comments before the show is over. So if you're looking for that information, we'll be posting it soon. And then you'll probably get it on Summer's page, and I'll be sharing it once she shares the link with me as well. What up, Kemet?
Good evening. Good evening.
Good. Well, we hope, even though you're in there, we hope to see you at the town hall as well.
For sure. Anyway, I just registered.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Well, let's just jump on into the topic at hand tonight. What are we talking about, Summer?
So this is gentrification 2.0, I guess, because one, I missed the conversation, and two, it was a really good one, and there was so much to kind of unpack. You know, it's a broad topic. So we're doing a 2.0. We have some guests joining us tonight who hopefully will add to the conversation on the real estate perspective and, the perspective of the St. Thomian Island, the perspective. I'm missing a perspective. What else we got coming?
I think
okay, that's about it. The two perspectives.
And the summer's perspective.
Yeah, and the summer perspective, right? On gentrification and what it actually, I think this conversation this week may be geared towards more solutions. I think last week we named a lot of things. One of the misconceptions I just want to put on the table, we were having this conversation pre-show, right? And I was asking difficult questions because I wanted to get at the point that gentrification is not about race, right? And a lot of times, because there is historical, colonialist patterns, capitalist behavior, and the socioeconomic barriers, right? The differences in the fact that we are a colony and have been colonized, and the people of the Africans who were enslaved here, it created a certain affect. And then as we go along and we became American citizens, that created another attribute, right? And so now that we're talking about socioeconomics, there's a huge socioeconomic gap between people who have access and people who don't have access. And when you look across the line, it happens to create a quite clear divide in what looks like a race divide between Black and white. But so you see a racial divide in gentrification, but anybody could be a gentrifier, right? Because again, so I guess we'll get straight into the conversation. I mean, we have one more guest, and I think we should just go ahead and bring him on. Tonight, we also have our WTJX family from the other island, Andre. You guys hopefully are all watching him on Monday nights at 8:30 on the Welcome Mat. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me, ma'am, from the other island. Frank, you are St. Thomian kind of,
I thought Bon Cruiser, but you're right.
Oh my. St. Thomian.
Good time.
Where you want to get a guy?
Excuse me?
Where were you in school?
In kindergarten?
When you were a youngster.
Miss Maynard School.
Where's that?
Havenside Hill.
Okay.
Frank,
I went to the Virgin Islands Montessori School, one of the greatest schools in the territory. It's in Bessa Bay. I graduated from Good Hope, and I was born in Juan F. Louis Hospital. So I guess what I did.
Gucci links in his Johnny Cake, so you know what y'all like.
Well, You know something, Andre? I just before we get into the show, I just want you to know what I don't have to put up with because I was born on St. Thomas.
No.
Kemet every show decides to attack the Johnny Cakes.
We love and embrace the Johnny Cake. I have Gucci links.
Listen,
around my neck right now. So
I have a friend. I have a friend born Saint-Tomian. My wife is a Crucian. She think that he makes the best Johnny Cakes that she's ever tasted. So maybe we could have a little WTJX thing, and I could probably see if I could have him do some slave labor, and we could probably put his stuff to the test. Very happy to be on with you guys this evening.
So I would be down to have an inter-island kind of like WTJX family related, like WTJX fam food wars, you know. See what's up. That might be cool.
We could do that.
That might
Okay, I
be
typed the name in chat so we don't forget. And tonight's topic.
But summer. Actually, Summer. Notwithstanding the Johnny Cake discussions, I think your point is spot on about gentrifiers it's not being tied to race. Just quickly that we did briefly mention it. Sorry for the tap dance in the background. We did briefly mention it last week in regards to talking about gentrification and cultural appropriation. When we noted that there's some people that that aren't from the VI and capitalize off of our history and the misrepresentation of our history, and that's one of the things that we doubled down on last week and made it clear for the listening audience that it is more than just black and white. And to that point also, I just wanted to add to that while it now has branched out and become something that's bigger than just black and white, just be very clear that that's how it started. In every, from folks from London, from Great Britain deciding that they were done with the monarchy and they were coming to create the United States of America. That's gentrification in and of itself, and how people were displaced and this thing created for them. So just wanted to toss that out at the top of the conversation.
Good. The one thing I wanted to say about your point, Summer, is that it is not racial, but it parallels racial inequity because of the socioeconomic systems. So because of how socioeconomics have played out over the last, 400, I can't do math right now, but close to 450 years due to slavery, due to everything else that's going on, colonialism, I think that Black people have gotten the short end of the stick. So we're just beginning to develop wealth, whereas for the most part, and of course this doesn't include everybody, white people have been able to amass some wealth for many years before we have. Maybe we're all somewhat on the same playing field, but I will say this point is that Black people take part in gentrification too. Asians take part in gentrification. They're doing it in many places. And the real crux of it is that it's socioeconomic. It's all about money and power. And the thing is that it's unfortunate that so many people within the Virgin Islands community are not able to, we're not able to afford our land, our properties. One thing that Darren pointed out last week is the inequity in terms of our median salary in the Virgin Islands is $31,000, and the median salary in the United States is something like $63,000. So there's a different level of buying power. But the thing is that we're still on the same playing field in terms of economics. The cost of living is very high here. So our food is expensive, our WAPA is expensive, gas is high, everything costs a lot. So even if we're making the money to begin to amass the wealth, we've been paying a lot just to survive and just to live for so long that at this point, when it has a lot of people coming from other parts of the country where they may not have such a high cost of living, they may have some old money in their family or whatever else, but it's much easier to jump up, leave, make some money, and come down here and buy things up. And that's the one difference that I pointed out last week is that it's liquid. It's the difference in liquidity. We just don't have that liquid money to be able to buy, preserve, and develop our own community. And individually is how I should put it. I think collectively we could do it, but doing things collectively is not the American way that was taught to us. Because people still do things collectively. It's just not how you see it. Everything is based upon individual merit a lot of the times. There's one other point I wanted to make before I passed on the mic, but I forgot it. So it'll come back to me if anybody wants to take up the mantle for the moment. My apologies.
All right, so I just kind of get back in. I do have a question though. So what happens or what's been happening in St. Thomas is people come from the mainland, mostly white people, but people come from the mainland. There's properties that may have been abandoned from the hurricane or maybe from before. Prices sky high. Locals can't afford it. We have our economic problems on island as well. In the sense of the idea of what's ours, right? Can we really call anything ours? It's an American land. Anybody could leave from here and go to Florida, purchase land, purchase a home. Shouldn't it be something that we're having a conversation about fixing the economy, fixing the socioeconomic woes that we have as a Virgin Islands people versus trying to prevent people from coming in and quote unquote taking what's ours?
I agree with you, Andre, 100%. I think that needs to be a significant part of the conversation. I don't think so. Before the chat, we had a little talk about it, and I don't think it's, for me personally, it's not just the gentrification that's the issue, but it's that neo-colonial attitude of we're going to come here and take over and create the best type of island paradise that is for us. Create a paradise that is geared towards American tourism, and it's not genuine of this land. So that's my primary issue. I do think that a large part of the problem is that we have created this environment. We as a people, we as a government, because I don't think that we have the confidence. We haven't trusted in our own to be the stewards of moving the Virgin Islands forward into the 21st century. I don't think that we value our own creative intelligence highly enough. And we believe that because people from the outside may have more means that they know better. And sometimes that has created the environment that has got us to this point. You think I'm wrong, Summer? You think that you don't think that people believe that people from the outside know better than we do, even if you come with the same credentials to the table?
So I was listening to what you said, and I was like, the thought that I had in my head is, who said that they have more? I think it has to do with what you place value on, and in many ways, I agree that we haven't placed value on ourselves, right? And that's because we never got out from underneath our colonialist system. But when we're talking about, okay, so I agree with Andre and I agree with you that we are part of our own problem. So how, if last week was talking about gentrification, how now do we position it so that we are closing the wealth divide and giving Virgin Islanders or Virgin Islands are being given opportunities to buy property, to buy homes, right? To take the space that the gentrification, which we call community development, might be filling. And then I think of the plan for Vision 2040, right? And I think of the part of the plan that asks to attract 10% more of a population. And what will the efforts be to attract back expats? Or when we develop Vision 2040 and we have those 8 pillars, what is the preparation for Virgin Islanders to first be the people who fill those new workforces instead of attract people from away? So my face or my thought process was around how do we stop the perpetuating, the self-perpetuating wheel of not allowing Virgin Islanders to take advantage of existing resources here and build wealth, filling ourselves from the inside first or growing from the inside first before we seek to attract from the outside. That's that. So I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was in a deep thought on how we could stop that.
I think the thing is that the thing is, you think about us as a developing country, but the thing is, we've always been somebody else's property. So this is just how this has been going along for about 500 years. I do want to clarify for everybody, when Summer says expats, she is referring to Virgin Islanders who have left the Virgin Islands and wants them to come home, not your typical use of expats referring to either people from America or Britain living abroad. Right, Summer? All right, cool.
Right. So I think there's a lot there. I think it starts with, one of the things we've been talking about in most of our shows is how do we create an atmosphere that makes people want to live there. For us that have, for people that have been there their whole lives, or people that just have this real special place for the VI in their hearts, it's easy, right? You can't deny the culture, the food, the music, the ocean, the spiritual connection that you have to St. Croix, St. Thomas, or St. John. That's just it. And to that point, I think, Andre, where you were going with, well, why not encourage people to come in? I think the whole issue with gentrification isn't that just that there are people coming in and creating a home for a different definition of home, but creating home for them. I think it's, as Frank alluded to it, is when you try to completely change the image of that space and make it into something that, one, it has never been, two, completely clashes with what already exists there. And I think that's been the case in Washington, D.C. and a number of the other cities that have gone through, or islands that have gone through, issues with gentrification. There's a benefit to the space to the detriment of a lot of the people that lived there originally and called it home first. And I think that's one of the things that we should be mindful of as things start to change. I know that, a lot is out of our control, but I think the community, in the widest sense of the term community, will really have to start doubling down on a lot of the issues that exist to make locals or expats, as defined by Summer, want to come back. Because like I mentioned last week, I would love to come back home. I just can't do it right now. And I think there are a lot of people that have that same sentiment. They would love to come home and build, but either one, the system is set up in a way that they're not afforded the same opportunities in terms of lending and mortgages, etc., as someone like Frank said that has liquid assets that can just give you cash and you'd be happy with receiving that cash. And there has to be other provisions made to improve the standard of living for people. I dance around the issue a lot because one, I would love to be home, and two, I know a lot of you guys that I love are home, but there are stuff that needs to be fixed. And I said it all the time. When I lived there, I just have to ignore stuff to be happy and to live in peace. There's a lot that you have to ignore, and that shouldn't be the case. And it shouldn't be what the wider community settles for because of the many decades of just inefficiency, forward thinking of our politicians that have led us to where we are today. And I'll pause there.
I think one of the things that people that leave and kind of want to come back to is respect. Kind of alluding to what you guys said, was talking about earlier when it comes to, I have a degree in XYZ, or I have expertise and years of experience in XYZ, but because I'm from home, it's like I gotta give a local discount on my services, right? Or even to the degree of I'm an educator, right? I get paid. You could find my salary in the newspaper every year. It's ridiculous. I have 2 degrees. All of that, it don't make a difference. My students make more than me on a daily basis. But I could go someplace else and start at 50,000, 60,000 for my credentials, right? So the cost of living versus what you are respecting me for my expertise is the reason that somebody would want to come down here and take less pay and have higher expenses is really just because you love home, or maybe possibly you may have an ailing family member, or whatever the case may be. Other people who don't have ties to the Virgin Islands come here and say, cool, I could make this a vacation spot. I could Airbnb this property up. I could come here in the summertime, do this, do that. I could live here for 5 months, run my business, go someplace else and run it remotely, yada, yada, yada. I could send some of my people down there from wherever they come from. They could become residents. They could have things moving down there. We're not afforded the opportunity because, not even afforded, because it is home and because we have the tie to it to not come down gate and like go. That's another kind of barrier that's going to prevent people from making the investment, because it's pretty much it's more difficult. It's a lot more difficult to be nomadic with home. It's impossible to be nomadic with home. Whereas other people who will consider this home could come and kind of stick a pin in it,
So it's funny because I read a book once and it said the problem with the world today. He was a pastor. It was called Renovation was the name of the book. He was saying our ability to be transient has stopped communities from actually solving issues, right? Because when you are wedded to a place and you can't move, then this intractable thing, all of these people who are stuck in it start putting energy towards it and alleviate it. What has happened, because we have the ability to be transient, is when you don't like it anymore or it feels uncomfortable, and like, of course, Kemet, in your case, yours was a health situation. Other than that, you were here to fight it out. People just start leaving, right? Because they seek ease, and rightfully so. Ease in raising your family, ease, the same salary, competitive salary, easier access to buying a home, more services. But the problem never gets tackled because people's answer now is I'm leaving, right? And so in order for us to fix, address, or even begin to look at development of the Virgin Islands in a way that does not feel like gentrification, it means that some of us would have to stay here and stick it out and figure out a way forward, right? Figure out the path forward together. And so, like, I don't even know how to begin, right? Because I feel like we have these two things against us, right? We have government systems that are not optimal, and for years inherited lots and lots of debt, which made them insolvent. And the answer to fixing them is selling pieces of paradise, right? Like, we think that if we attract other people with money, they're gonna come in and that's gonna fix what's going on. And then at the same, so it's invited in. We're looking for people from away with a specific type of resource, and we just named the resource don't look like us because of historical factors. So we're looking to bring those people in because we want them to come in. We want them to bring those jobs, but Virgin Islanders don't get those jobs. Maybe if you bring in those economic development companies and they have less than 10% of their staff represented as Virgin Islanders, right? And then when you look at the ratio of who in the offices of Virgin Islander, who's making a manager's salary, who's making a director's salary, right? Compared to who else is being paid, like, so that's that. And so because of our insolvency, we need quick fixes, right? I think it's beyond just wanting it. We need them, but at the same time, there isn't a quick fix if you're going to empower people who median salary is 36,000. How much it was, Frank? 30, 31?
31,000 is the median salary in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
People whose median salary is $31,000 into becoming homeowners, building owners. I want to buy a building in downtown Christiansted with my current salary.
Look, with the average place going for rent for something like $1,500 to $2,000, you realize that's like if you got $2,000 in rent and you're making, let's go up to $40,000, $24,000 of what you make before taxes goes to just so you can have a roof over your head, and maybe it might even just be a room. Like, I think
And you gotta get $50 chicken too.
Yeah.
Right. It's illegal to catch the wild chicken. Then they're gonna try and put you in jail. They're gonna put you in cuffs and stuff. These people really gonna call the police on you for catching wild, feral, invasive species.
So but there's another point you just bring in here, right? You just talk about a $1,200 to $2,000 rent. We are those of us who own property. Those are our rentals, right? And we renting them. So we're actually saying to each other, Andre, I don't want you to come rent my house. I don't want Kevin to come rent my house because I want somebody else who can afford the $2,000. Now, I think that comes from a scarcity mindset, right? Where ain't gonna have enough, but we are actually part of creating the blockages that says other Virgin Islanders don't have opportunity, and maybe you have to rent it for $2,000 to meet your extreme mortgage now because you bought a home and you're only making $31,000 and you got three kids and two of them they're in college. So it's just like boom, 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 right? Yeah. So where is the starting point is my question. Where is a starting point to take this apart and do something different?
I think one of the big points is will be people starting to get active and speaking out. And I don't know if people are just tired or afraid of politicians or what the case may be, but if we saw the amount of uprising protests against the injustices with how Black people are policed in the US, for a very acute or series of situations, there is no reason why people aren't in the streets as much as they should be in the VI for a number of the issues that are out there. Lime Tree is one of them. And the list goes on. And I'll pause there and try to do it together.
Hey, don't be putting on mute to cuss your dog.
Well, I was like,
Yeah, he gave him the side. He gave him like, look, you get people on the internet thinking that you do crazy things to your animal, man.
Yeah, but honestly, I think that's I don't know if it's complacency or what, but a lot of people just go by and live day to day with a lot of the issues that like and to Summer's point, what she was talking about with the individuals that are attracted in, and the whole transient vibe, that's existed from the dawn of the snowbirds in the territory, and it continues to exist with a lot of the business people that are coming in now. And the unfortunate reality is that a lot of them don't worry about healthcare. They don't worry about GRS. They don't worry about a lot of the things that affect locals because they don't have to deal with it.
I don't have to.
Their doctors are their primary care. They're on the U.S. mainland somewhere. They don't have to pay into GRS, so they're not stuck in that trap. And they can jump on a plane and get out whenever they want. So, yeah. But for those that live on the island, I think they've really gone soft. They've gone complete opposite of the Queen Mary energy that we need to start getting back.
I think we have to educate ourselves on what's possible, the everyday person, because we talk about going out and protesting or just kind of making noise, but what we making noise for? And yes, we might know, cool, we want affordable housing, we want the opportunity to build and create equity in our home and all of that. But once again, what are the parameters by which government can say we can afford locals these privileges, we can afford locals these opportunities, and so on and so forth? My wife had an idea. For the life of me, I don't remember what idea was, but she did present it to one of the folks in government, and they told her it's something that's a bias law. It's just something as a lawmaker is not possible. So and I agree with you, Kemet, like we do have to make noise for what we want. But I think that the noise that we make sometimes isn't very pointed.
Right.
It's broad, and we say, okay, well, hey, we want this to happen, we want that to happen.
Yeah.
But what are the parameters under which these things are possible to happen? So if we educate ourselves on the things that are realistic, we could say, hey, we in the streets making noise because we know as lawmakers you could put this on the table. Or we know we can make noise because we know it's possible for the governor to approve XYZ. And going back to the whole origin of the issue, which is the economy, being able to say, well, hey, we can make this affordable, but we still have to make sure that the people could actually afford it along with the daily bills and other expenses that kind of come up. So yeah, we could riot in them. I mean, I know Crucians, they riot more than us. We could riot, but we gotta make it pointed.
And I don't even mean rioting and protesting in the sense of large crowds going out. I mean protesting in the ballot box. Like I think for too many years we just get so complete. Like when I hear people commending some of the politicians that we have right now and some of the really, it's just in your face. I don't know if asinine is the right word or if I can use it on a show, but some of the policies are just, when you look at it as somebody that's a critical thinker, that reads, that understands what the implications of some of these policies are or some of these statements are, and you look at people celebrating some of the stupidness, that's where I want the community to unite on, is for a united front to be like, you know what, that's BS, and you're not going back in office to give us more BS. And a lot of the people, we've said it on a show before, a lot of the politicians aren't held accountable for a lot of the crap that they do, and it needs to change.
So local policies to promote moderate price housing might be helpful. And so, Andre, I think you didn't remember what your wife's idea was, but I think a lot of the times there are ways, right, where local policymakers can have an impact, and they should, because that's a great idea. Local policies to promote moderate income homes, but also local policies that promote entrepreneurship and business expansion, right? Local policies, because whether, then we could have offices in downtown that are representative of a fuller picture of the Virgin Islands business community. When we have business and restaurant owners who can't afford, because part of gentrification is the economic development and the business opportunity. It's not just the housing market. The housing market is one piece. These things go hand in hand with the private sector, because those downtown offices aren't our government offices. There are, there are one or two of them there, but those are private sector businesses that local Virgin Islanders can't afford the light or the WAPA in. So like our infrastructure, so policies that promote more balanced infrastructure to allow for the development in a way in which it doesn't feel like erasure. Because I don't think, I want to believe well-intentioned, right? I don't think that is the intention, but some of the things we do create unintended consequences which box out Virgin Islanders. I would love to ask a question. How many of you can name in your downtown areas locally owned businesses? Like the local person own it. How much are them in our downtown area? What percentage? And of the businesses that were there, if you ask them why they no longer exist, they're going to tell you rent, light. They're pushed out, and all of a sudden, the same. What you said, Frank? All of a sudden, the same type of business that pop up in the same space. I just feel like, so one, information is needed. I agree with you there too, Andre, but it has to be more than information. We have to educate people, and then we have to create mechanisms that help people act. And it's on multiple levels. The policy level is one thing, but maybe policies are put in place. Like we had Wayne Biggs on the show, and he talked about the EDA helping a lot of small mom and pops, right? There are more that needs to be helped. So how do we get more people helped by EDA? How do we get more people helped by SBDA or SBDC? So the federal government supplying funds for those things, what can the local government do to supplement, to increase more people being successful within those agencies? So then, I don't know, I feel, yeah, we just got to do something different.
So not related 100%, but one of the things that I forgot to mention last week was that in a number of places, and I guess it exists now in the VI also, there's something called a buying agent. And, I think a lot of people aren't familiar with that, don't know that they exist. But that, I think, can be one of the things that help to solve some of these issues. And given that, the whole purpose of a buying agent is to help you through the purchasing process. And a lot of people, I think, minorities, locals, whatever, however you want to term it, they go into these opportunities just themselves and an individual working with a person trying to sell. Of course, there are a lot of used car salesmen out there in the world, and you can get frustrated in the process. You can get sold a lemon. That's happened to a number of people. But I think that the whole concept of utilizing buying agents more can help with some of the issues that we have in the island, that you're not in it by yourself and you have somebody else looking through things, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, and helping you from beginning to end in the process.
And I would be remiss as an educator if I didn't just think about education. Like, I have no idea what I do when it comes to purchasing property. I have no idea what I do when it comes to purchasing homes. I am learning right now at 35 what FHA loans are and what this is and what that is, and how, what type of homes can apply for this and that. I think some of the smaller things that we could do that wouldn't cost a dime is for everybody that knows something to pass something down. Frank may have a business. I may never be as an aspiring business owner, but if I know the things that Frank went through, I could talk to somebody who might be. I'm not a homeowner currently, but some I might be. And the more information that's kind of passed down, just the things that just don't cost a dime, if we pass it down to our children, especially, I know it might, I hope for it not to be too late for them to take advantage of these things. But the more we just kind of pass free game on to each other, I know you were speaking about these buying agents, they may cost some money, am I correct? So if there are people in your friend group, people that you could kind of reach out a hand to and say, well, hey, this is the process that you got to go through to get a set. This is the capital you have to build in order to have a down payment on such and such. And I think that those small conversations just kind of go a long way.
So I think that's a super actionable step because it's informal information sharing, right? It's an informal network of. So can I remember the time on the show when I was talking that crab in a barrel, but the turtles, the turtles in a turtle nest, like the baby turtles push each other up. They actually help each other out. They create that ladder mentality. And so what you're talking about is that turtle in a turtle nest, right? It's using what you know to give people platform to get further. And I think that that's something that we could do without the government, right? I think that that's us saying, hey, and we have so much opportunity now because guess what? A person who buy a house could go on Facebook and host a Facebook Live for free and say, hey, just like how we don't get people to come on live to watch other things and be like, I'm gonna be on for the next 20 minutes telling I the first step I had to take to buy my house, right? People gonna watch. And so in this informal network, we could share as much information as we want. And financial literacy is key. So when you talk about education, use 35 is 43. And there's still things that I'm learning that about the importance of credit, right? And the role that credit and financial stewardship plays in you being able to get a house, right? Thinking through your student loans. And so there is a pre-step that we should be looking at. How does this fit in our education system? And the other natural step is parents, aunties, uncles, cousins, nannies, peps, everybody who have a title, who have achieved some of these things. Talk to the young people in your life.
Yep, I agree 100%. Yeah,
Sorry.
I think we've talked about it in a number of areas how our curriculum needs to be updated to catch up with the times that we live in now, and that's definitely part. We've talked about civics in a number of conversations, and I think all of the above needs to be included. Whether it's the taxes, home ownership, entrepreneurship, instead of the options. That entrepreneurship could be an option just as much as college or trade can be an option. But there's. I'm not in education, but the powers that be really need to start focusing on that.
Well, there is a town hall tonight. I think it's part one of a series about education that Senator Whitaker, right? Genevieve's last name is Whitaker, right? Senator Whitaker is hosting at UVI. I think tonight is part one, and I believe they're either doing 3 or 4 series. I don't know. I'm getting the town halls mixed up. So there is that going on. One thing I did want to say is that when you talk about passing on knowledge and trying to help your fellow man out, is that we have been brought up in an Americanized system. We have been brought up in the system of capitalism and individualism, which has really broken the foundation of the way that we, as people of African descent, have lived. How we were able to survive and get through slavery, the way that we lived, I think, really up until recent times. And there's a fear of competition when you pass on knowledge, rather than knowing that if I'm passing on knowledge to you, we're going to uplift each other and we're going to grow together. But the notion of that comes down to, whenever you talk like that, people think it's socialism, it's communism, whatever. But the thing is that we live on an island. We live in a small community. We live in a village, and the village is what is needed once again, so that we can all collectively thrive, so that we can all collectively survive. Otherwise, we are just going to get bought up and squeezed out, and be diaspora of people spread out across the globe, and there won't really be much, ancestral Virgin Islanders left in the Virgin Islands. I mean, which might already be the case, unfortunately. Um, so there is that. Um, I really just want to see the Virgin Islands be able to represent itself authentically moving into the future. I don't want 20 years from now for us to simply just be a place that has this islandy Americana vibe to it, it's not genuine of the place. It's not genuine of the people that came from here. It's not genuine of the history, the story of this lands, of the bodies, the blood, sweat, and tears that exists in the soil. And I think that's my fear, and that's what I want to be able to honor. I mean, it's just like in the 1600s, they wiped out an entire civilization of people that once lived here. They brought us here, made their money, they left, and then we are the descendants of those who were able to survive here in this Caribbean. We are the descendants of slavery here. And to be coming on to another colonial wave of disenfranchising these people, us. It's just unfortunate to see it. And like I said in the last show, I've never had an issue with people moving to the Virgin Islands, loving the Virgin Islands for what it is, becoming a part of our community, making a living here, being happy here, whatever. Whether you got a little bit more money, a little less, whatever. Like I said, the problem that I have as of late, and where I see it being the ugly side of gentrification, is that neo-colonial attitude of, well, we own you. What do you mean? We have all the rights. We're American, and you're American, and we know what's better, and we're gonna come and turn this place into what it was like for us back home, because this third world country that you guys live in, you know it's like people negate the fact that they come to paradise because of that third world element. And then they're going to develop it up into this, what's that song that was it Pay Paradise to put up a parking lot? That's exactly what's going to happen. Everything's going to get built over. All the trees are going to get cleared down. It's not going to be the same environment. The ocean's going to become nasty. The reefs are going to die. We're not going to have any conch. We're not going to have any lobster. We're not going to have any fish. We're not going to be able to swim in the sea without getting a staph infection. I mean, there's severe ramifications for overdevelopment, and all development is not progress. And I think that's where people fail to realize it, because everybody is everybody just watching this. And it's like, if we get all the money in the world and we don't have a safe place to live, we'll die. And the money will still be here and nobody will be able to spend it. And that might be a little extreme in how I'm saying it, but that's the long-term procession of these things. So
I was actually about to ask, just along your line of thinking, if the process continues as it is, if the trend continues, if I should say, how many years you think we have until the Virgin Islands is not recognizable as what we are?
10.
5, 10? That's soon.
I mean, so that is a process of oh my gosh, why I can't remember it, but it's basically it's disaster capitalism, right? In all of our plans, when people come in now and they're rebuilding, they don't rebuild historically. They don't rebuild with the same places in mind, and the people who are rebuilding, they aren't us, right? So they don't have a sense of the cultural nuance of what we want our cities and towns. There is no place keeping. And what Frank said is so true to me, that all development is not progress. And that's because we don't have a true cost accounting lens, right? We only look at finances. That has been the lever that our leaders are trained in. That has been the lever that we are trained in. The measure of success is determined solely by the amount of value and material wealth you amass in this life, right? That is how we are taught in this system to measure success and to measure value. Dollars and what you own. But there is a quality of life that sits outside those things, right? And I want nice things in my life too. I want a nice car. I like driving in AC. I'm not an extremist where it's like we shouldn't have any of these things. But my whole value have to do with how much green space I have, the quality of food I have access to, the people I share my life with, right? Prosperity is determined by more than a economic wealth indicator, and our trained system has people coming in a room to think only solely economic wealth indicators, and they don't think at scale. They're not thinking that we're 84 square miles, 34 2 square miles, 10 square miles, what is right for this. They're trying to compete on a global scale, right? With Caribbean islands 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and in some cases 20 times, larger than us, and wanting to be them instead of developing at scale our unique opportunities for the people of the Virgin Islands to experience intergenerational wealth. And when I say people of the Virgin Islands, I'm talking about anybody who has come here, made it their home, and loved it, right? And is doing their part to move it forward, and grow it, not change it, right? So yeah, Andre, I think we don't understand what prosperity is as a people because we're using a very capitalist lens.
A narrow capitalist lens because it's short term. It's all about the money now and not what it's going to look like down the road. It's like, what can we get now, right now, while we're alive and thriving, and not like, what's going to happen if we do this today for my children and my children's children, because there are long-term effects for every decision that's made. And when it comes to serious development, that is one of the things. You can't just grow back a forest after you destroy it. You can't replace a reef after you dredge it. You can't, a lot of these things require long-term growth, especially as it relates to the environment. Of course, there's other things, but we can't replace what nature built. And if you build something and it pollutes the soil, you can't grow nothing. You can't grow food. You can't do nothing. You might not even be able to live there. So,
but look at the impacts of the refinery, right? I'm not talking about Lime Tree Bay. I'm talking about in the development of Hovensa. So you know what I mean? When they used to spray the mangroves with oil because we didn't know any better. We don't get back those mangroves. There was a time where our government paid people to spray oil on the mangroves because we didn't know that the mangroves were valuable. We thought they needed to be killed, and now we can't get that back in Kraus Lagoon. So I mean, it's just to name, but what is the health impact of that decision, right? Because some of the decisions we make not only, so if it affects our physical living environment and conditions, air quality, water quality, that means it's also affecting my body, right? And how the length of days in our life, the ability. I mean, look at our food. I could just point out there is a person who is morbidly obese. Our 98% import rate, our fast food culture, the way in which we eat all these heavy starches, we are condemning ourselves to slow death by these choices, and I watch as we pass it on to our children, right? All of those things are a part of prosperity. We have to deal with the whole thing. And And for people just joining, tonight's conversation is about gentrification, right? Nothing stands by itself. Nothing stands by itself.
Summer, I think to add to that, the points that both you and Frank just made, is not only are we, there's this value based or placed on finance and on gain as a weird parallel to success or prosperity or progress. But the catch, and what's always been the catch for us in the Virgin Islands, is that the politicians making those decisions just don't know how to negotiate. And so it's bad enough that, you know, this is a really skewed and absurd way to think about progress, but then at the same time, you continue to sell the people of the VA short. They continue to get the short end of the stick. I've said it on multiple shows. Having what was in the Western Hemisphere single largest oil refinery on St. Croix. St. Croix should look like Dubai. And that's not the case. All of our systems should be working. You know, when you guys started talking about some of the issues with GERS and healthcare and all of the above should be working properly. And even then, I don't think I could still support the refinery, but at least you'd be able to, well, the crappy end of all of it is that, you know, we're taken care of and we have the resources that we need to live whatever kind of quality of life we think we want to live. The sad part is that, and I've said it before also, I don't think enough emphasis is placed on what's really happening to everyone that lives west of the refinery. And every time it rains, every time that there's a spill, there are, you know, people complain about asthma, people complain about other respiratory issues, people complain about the high, what's anecdotally a higher rate of cancer on the west end of St. Croix, but no one's really doing the hard science to really attribute any of those things to what's really happening at the refinery. And I think that that's one of the most crappy pill to swallow, is that we encourage this business, this industry that we know is harmful. Everybody knows that it exists where it exists because it's in a community of Black and brown people. This idea of how these industries are cited is a thing that's very consistent across the mainland U.S. and now in the Caribbean, and there's only few people that are speaking out on. Again, it's not just the refinery. You know, there was a whole Alcoa thing back in the day. You know, the rum industries in the territory aren't doing what they said they were going to do or supposed to do with their waste. And so there's that. And it's like, there shouldn't be a compromise for environment and, more importantly, health when it comes to what kind of industries and businesses are attracted and quote unquote celebrated in the US, because there are a lot of people, again, that just think that lime tree is the best thing that ever happened to St. Croix. And yeah.
So there are a lot of programs adults can participate in to gain financial literacy, but it is not a one pop pill. So very true. Oh, happy to say that this summer, VIDE will be offering a series of exciting initiatives and courses for students, including that of financial literacy. So that's great to hear. So it's nice to hear that steps are being taken. I want to jump on that. Nothing in life is a one pop pill, right? Nothing. I wish. There's so many pills I wish existed. I would have the get-free pill. I would have the, weight loss banging body pill. I would have just like list them, hormonal pill. But hence, that it doesn't work that way. There's actually some work you gotta do, and nice to know if you could put any of the programs that you are aware of in the chat. Any person who is on following us tonight, please share the any information you have on where people could go, right? Because one of the things, like Andrea was talking on, the each one teach one, that informal network. If you know where people could go to get classes, just plug them in here, give them numbers, because we gotta start someplace.
I know that there's a housing finance class. I'm not sure about the times at which it's given, and I'm not sure about St. Croix, but on St. Thomas, some friends of mine took it, and they go through that process with you. Of course, it costs, but I don't think it was that much, and it is definitely an investment in your future if you're interested in that. I'm not sure if there's a similar class for business owners, but for sure there's think FHA. Not sure about the letters and the ABCs and all of that, but there's definitely homeowner classes.
Cool. I think the education is great. I think all the programs are excellent. I hope that it can be marketed to reach more people. I wanted to switch gears real quick and something that was on my mind earlier today about some of our utilities, major businesses, and things that are being run out of Puerto Rico, and how Puerto Rico has come into the Virgin Islands in a major way in terms of our banks, our cable TV, our cell phone service provider, a few things like that. Like, is our relationship with Puerto Rico amicable and beneficial enough mutually that is not also a part of the gentrification, or is it just capitalism at work, and Puerto Ricans saw an opportunity to capitalize on our weak spots?
But that's a large scale thing, man, Frankie. Like, what choices we have, when it comes to internet service, phone service. These are some heavy things. This ain't a restaurant. You know what I mean? So it's like, at the end of the day, it's tough that we are subject to things like that. But I mean, if you guys could educate me, I'm definitely open. But what can we really do about it?
Train up our workforce in the way that they should go. Make up for. I mean, like, you know what I mean? It is a part, to me, a function of workforce development. I don't think it's gentrification, but I do think it's extractionary. So I wanted to say two things. I'm happy that I'm gonna just be real here. I'm glad it's my sister island instead of a colonial state, right? I'm so glad to feed Puerto Rico, rather than, like, I don't have anything against New Yorkers. I mean, I'm just using them as an example. So, like, the money going to Puerto Rico, it's not my ideal. The ideal would be that the workforce that is powering these things for the Virgin Islands came from the Virgin Islands. But in absence of it coming from us, I could dig it coming from the Caribbean region. What I don't think we should do is become comfortable and not develop a workforce that can then, one, supplement the existing workforce, and then two, take an arc of a trajectory that in the next 10 years, we are the people providing these services to ourselves, but then also capable of doing the same thing, providing services to Puerto Rico, providing services to the BVI, providing services to Dominica and Anguilla. Like, we live in a place that receives hurricanes, and instead of shipping in the people who are putting holes in the ground from away, why are we not certifying a team so we can be traveling across the Caribbean helping each other? Like, I don't know.
Do we have a long-term work development and education plan? Like, does that exist? Do we know, like, what gaps we need to fill in regards to, like, developing our infrastructure to growing businesses for the essential things that we need in the Virgin Islands? Like, are those positions or careers or jobs even thought about and presented to our children who are learning through schools, and not just from the vocational lens, but from the academic lens as well? Is that something that and I mean, I guess that would be an answer from the Department of Education or the Board of Education. I don't know which one, but is that something that is out there? Like, do we know where we need to fill the gaps as Virgin Islanders? And are we encouraging our youth to become educated in that fashion and incentivizing them to come back home to take these things over? Because I think it happens in other islands and other places that are developing, other quote unquote third world nations.
I was actually about to chime in because when you made the previous comment, you reminded me that this is actually something that I was thinking about today myself, in preparation for this call, and having traveled and been in a number of different countries around the Caribbean. We are actually an anomaly, whereas in a number of the places that you go, Bahamas, Cuba, Curacao, Grenada, St. Kitts, Anguilla, St. Martin, like they're in most of the other places Barbados that you visit, locals run the show for the most part. Puerto Rico is an amazing example. What happened when the governor was tripping over there? They got him out. Like, that's something that we would never think of on St. Croix, despite how horrible a person might be as the governor. But that's something that we've just gotten to that point where we would never consider doing something like that. But it happens in other places because I don't know if it's the sense of pride or home, or I don't know. There's just a different energy. The St. Croix is one of the few places that I've been in the world, where I can't support a dive shop that's locally owned. One of the few places that just doesn't happen. Everywhere else that I've been, I can find a locally owned and operated dive kit to use. And that's not to say that, I don't support the ones that exist on St. Croix right now. It's just to say that, we're having this conversation, but it's been the case for decades, where it's not only now that we're not valuing what locals have to offer in terms of being their own entrepreneur, buying property, developing land, building the economy. That's existed from when they killed agriculture to bring in Hovensa or Hess oil in the very beginning. It's existed where we as locals, people of the islands, are not seen as viable when it comes to like real industry, outside of like, we don't even do lemonade stands and whatnot anymore, but outside of things like that, we're not encouraged to do, and it is a large part connected to what our students are taught in high school. We went from, there was a time where vocation was a thing, and they built the whole vocational high school, but in actuality, what's really supported is go to high school, get a diploma, go to college, get a degree, and it should be, you either should be going into like accounting or some of the business degrees, nursing, teaching, doctor, lawyer, and that's pretty much it. That's where you should go and come back and work for somebody else. But it's never been the case where entrepreneurship was promoted, and thinking outside the box is promoted. Like I ended up a marine scientist because from a young age I just decided, this is what I'm gonna do, and it was on me whether or not I was gonna do it or not. A lot of my friends said that they were gonna study marine science also, and we had this cool group at high school, and it didn't happen.
Andre, you want to read that comment?
Yes, Marcelina Douglas, very nice lady. She says local entrepreneurs have to prove themselves before they're supported. but we welcome outsiders with open arms. That's definitely something that was a conversation when, I mean, I don't want to say any names of any businesses, but there's a business on St. Thomas who pretty much serve burgers out of brown paper bags. And there were comments about people saying, well, hey, if a local did that, then it would be, what you think he's solving me? I can't get a plate, I can't get a knife, I can't get a fork, and yada, yada, yada. And someone else does it, and now there are multiple businesses that comes out of that. And that's not a stain on the person who brought the business. That's kind of something that we have to work on as a people, that we get service from a particular local business, and let's say we're not satisfied. We can't just drop.
Listen, I had a thought, and then we do not see, hi Darren, we miss you. We do not see the value in providing opportunities to local businesses. We fall into the trap of being easily impressed by trickle down economics and see people with money as our saviors. In a good PoliTalks, if Darren ain't mentioned trickle down economics. So we are happy that you put that in the chat. And we co-sign just in time for Andre to come back. Perfect. You was in the middle. So Andre, I just want you to know you didn't have to mention any names while you were talking. My brain froze from guilt because I know exactly where you're talking about, and I'm a patron every trip. It's funny, they have somebody who copy them or have the same design in St. Croix, and I refuse to eat from them. But when I go to the next island, I'd stop. Yeah. So so one of the things though is the way that in which we perpetuate the same behaviors, right? Like the things that we complain about. Like so in each one of us, I would like to say, at least inside of myself, right? There's this dance between like this fidelity to what you believe in and the hypocrite that does the opposite behavior to what you believe in, right? And you, like, I'm always sliding on a spectrum, and it just takes like being in real conversation to admit, like, here I am on the edge of the precipice of this is what I stand for, and these are the ways in which my own behaviors in my community do not support what I say my belief system is, right? And so one of the ways in which we could help establish local business is by supporting local business. One of the ways in which we could help battle what you're talking about is have the same standards, right? And appreciate and apply the same standard lens to all businesses that we support or to all people, right? Like when in the world now, the language is how we make things anti-racist, right? It's actually by removing those barriers and treat situations as they are situations. And so thank you for like checking me, because it was a nice little check.
Yeah, but it's still nuanced, and I think there should be opportunity to sit back and look at a scenario and say, okay, you know what? Here's how to navigate through it. Because one of the things I've also noticed about restaurants at home, especially local restaurants, they believe they just must serve food in a styrofoam container. And so when we're talking about belief systems and whatnot, yeah, a paper bag might seem kind of, but at the same time, are you wanting a styrofoam, a hinged styrofoam container to get your food? Or for me, that's I guess where how I make my decisions. And so the restaurants that I support are the ones that, Frank, because I can go in there with my my Hydro Flask and fill it up and get a drink. Starbucks is having this thing where they're selling reusable cups, but they can't pour the beverage in a reusable cups. I don't support them as much as I used to because of that. And so I think that as we start to think through this, and this isn't solely like based on the paper bag restaurant. I don't even know who they are, but I think that there's a level of forward thinking and ways to rationalize what's not only good for us in terms of health rationale. A lot of these restaurants will heat your food up in the styrofoam container and give it to you, and as well as what's going to be good for the environment. The same environment that we talk about is so important that we preserve and keep the way that it is. And so I'll just toss that out there. I think a lot of these decisions need to be very nuanced, and we're at the point where we're talking about sustainability in a prior talk, and we were like, this needs to be at the forefront of every business's mind. But a lot of time people need to go into situations thinking about not just A, but thinking about A, B, C, all the way to Z when making decisions.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm audible, and I hope that I stay on. But I was just kind of getting into the ideology that whenever we do support local, or even if we think nationally, whenever we buy black, we don't give each other the grace of improving the product, right? So I might go somewhere and not have the best experience, but instead of maybe offering some criticism or just kind of making sure that I kind of air my grievances in the right way, we kind of just cuss people out, or we just don't patronize that business anymore. I think going that extra mile of understanding, we should give grace to each other and try to give feedback to help make the product better. And whatever that goes a long way. And I really hope people hear that, because I have no idea if I am or not.
You on? We hear you, and you right.
We got you this time.
Yeah. Go ahead, Summer. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead, Frank. I would never want to tell anybody what to do.
But just to piggyback off of what Andrew just said, that I'll echo that. Summer, you do it all the time, but it's okay. I'll echo that and just share briefly. I was in the same scenario. Like, a good friend of mine would make spicy oxtail soup, and I couldn't eat it because he knows I can't eat pepper. But in his restaurant, like, he would make spicy oxtail soup. And I told him about it, but that doesn't mean that I didn't like stop going. I continued to support his business and just not eat the spicy oxtail soup. You understand me, Frank?
Doesn't mean he didn't still get special treatment. With the Kemet wings and fries, that Summer claim got more wings than anybody else sold. So
let's not go there, because that's going to take this conversation in a negative direction. And I was happy with y'all tonight. I didn't feel like I was the only girl, right? So let's not talk about the wings. But as we prepare to close out, I just wanted to say, I think the point that Andre closed on, grace, right? I think that's a principle in a healthy community. Grace for each other. And I think that if we did, then we would start sharing things more, like that information network we talked about. I think that if our leaders had a little bit more graciousness, they would see the efforts that like I sometimes think that they feel like the people aren't trying hard enough, and the people feel like the leaders aren't trying hard enough, and we'll be hitting the blame ball back and forth. And while we do that, our landscape is changing very rapidly. And so if grace was a principle applied someplace in between, maybe we'd be making headway together. And that in itself, who knows? But your closing comment or your thought on grace, Andre, really, yeah, that's what I would like. A more gracious space so we could answer some of these issues together.
I agree. I mean, I think it's that I think Andre also made a point back to what I was talking about in terms of how we value things from the outside versus how we value ourselves. Well, it come from away and it wrap up in a nice little pretty boy, look nicer than what we got. So we need to go there and it's going to be better than what we have. And unfortunately that's a, I don't know where that comes from. It's a subconscious form of thinking. Um, I don't know. I guess, it's the idea America is the greatest country in the world or something like that. Either way, I really do hope that, I see an energy. I hope the energy grows and expands amongst Virgin Islanders, that we are coming together and we'll come together collectively, and hopefully we will influence the upcoming generations to take pride in their home and not just VI pride in throwing things up and wearing some local shirts or doing whatever, but actually wanting to be stewards of your home, to take care of it, for your children and your children's children and generations to come, so that this will still be a viable place for us to live and thrive healthily, so that we can still have our natural resources, so that we could still get rain and enjoy natural spaces and eat the food that is produced here by the land and the sea, and that we will live in prosperity moving forward. And prosperity doesn't mean that we're going to have a bunch of high rises and skyscrapers and like massive sprawling hotels or anything like that. Prosperity just means that our people aren't living in poverty, that everybody is able to have a roof over their head and everybody's able to have a warm meal to eat, and people are comfortable and happy and not living in fear that they're going to lose their home or they don't know where that food is going to come from. And that to me is the success of the Virgin Islands, when all Virgin Islanders can live comfortably, happily, in harmony and safely. All this other stuff is fluff. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I love the Virgin Islands, and I just want to see it prosper for all of we.
So that's your mic drop. Like that is it. We saying good night to the people, or you was just like boom, mic drop. I want to say, Andre, it was really nice having you on the show. We hope we get more of these exchanges amongst our WTJ family.
Definitely.
People at the VI, don't forget, tomorrow is engaged, not tomorrow, the 13th is engaged VI. Please come out to the town hall. Please make sure you catch Andre's show on Monday at 8:30. Who knows? Maybe one of us might be visiting one of these nights. Keep the conversation popping on the next side. And thank you for watching PoliTalks. We will be back. Preach the things, Summer. I like that. And Frank, stop making the money. That's a great one. Have a great night out there in Facebook Live. See you next week. This was WTJ.
Thank you for tuning in.
Bringing you PoliTalks.
We love you. Peace.